Excuse me. And let me see who I've got joining me. Yeah, Patty, glad to see you here. And as always, I always want to let you know, and where I'm starting a little bit earlier than I'm starting a little early. And of course, folks can jump back, those who come in and join us. And as usual, if something should happen with this technology and it goes and crashes and burns, then the bottom line would simply be, I'm going to go ahead and then I'll have to redo it, and I'll just cover the content there. Since I've got you here, if you have any questions, I could try to help you with. And always remember, if you don't have a microphone, you can invoke a chat function and send me a message. Nobody sees it, but as I've said before, if it's like a general question, I'll say, I have a question here about blah, blah, blah. But if it's something else, that it's kept private. Nobody else sees that. Anything? Okay. Well, looks like not. All right, I'm gonna make sure I'm recording here. I've got some sound, and I'm gonna pop over here now. I have a little toolbar that's not visible to all of you. I'm gonna move it around a little bit, and we're gonna start in the Moodle room, okay? And just where we are today, what's going on. And now we're over here in module 3, and today obviously is the 12th. Now, Monday we'd reviewed PAR Inc., and then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we'd also looked at the M&D chemicals. So this week we're moving on to PAR Inc. continued. Now, over in pages 149 to 151, okay, PAR Inc. is shown. And I'm in my textbook. I'm gonna pop over here. Okay. And we're gonna use the PAR Inc. continued case as a way to dig a little deeper into the sensitivity analysis using Excel Solver. Now, that is going to be due on Friday, and there is a file. And when you go over to the student files, the Anderson student files, you'll find PAR mod, okay? And that's in the chapter 3 portion of those files. Now, I'm going to diminish my browser here for a minute, and I'm going to go over here and take a look at the Anderson text student files. Here they are, and I'm going to open those up, and I'm going to look at chapter 3. And again, I'm going to open up and take a look at, and I'm going to go to the Excel files, excuse me, and there's PAR mod. So PAR mod is the file that we're going to use today, and that's what you'll upload upload to Canvas for the workshop credit. That's what's due here. Now, over in the chapter 4 files, you're going to find the case, and that's over in pages 160. Okay, let me pop on here. I'm just not sure. Okay, there you go. And now, again, what we're going to look at is using the sensitivity report. And as we looked through it, we saw that there are 3 different reports that the software provides us, okay? Now, I'm going to go back over here to my textbook, all right? And the case starts over here with 149, and the authors here give us some information about how to access the reports, and they show us a response. You remember we had done PAR. This is the PAR Inc., the first one we'd done, and we had to change the time available to see what that looked like, okay? And then they're going to walk us through the issue of the sensitivity report and how to interpret it. Okay. Hopefully this will pop up for me here. Here we go. And they show us the Power Ink solution also using the lingo. Again, the lingo, if you look at that, it's going to give you the same data. It's just presented differently. And let me say this again, and I'll get questions from students. The lingo software is a software that the publisher has at a supplemental site, and you can use it as opposed to using Excel. The problem is it adds about $200 to the cost of the textbook. Plus, the institution provides us access. Any student can go get the open Office 365, and you can use Excel. In fact, if you're in the lab, you can go to the VMware and go over there and get the suite, productivity suite as well. So even if you're remote, you can go over and get VMware, and I would call the help desk, and they should be able to walk you through it. And I'm at this point, I'm trying to work out how we can get VMware available for folks on a Mac. Now, I talked to a couple of people yesterday, and it's my understanding they can, but it was a little convoluted. All that being said, if we run the report, as I mentioned on Monday, we get these data, and we always have to remember when we look at one of these cases that behind the numbers that we crunch through Solver is a story and data that's been collected. And those data should be subjected to certain standards. And if you were getting a bachelor's in operations research or operations management, that we dig into that, and what are the standards and what should we be seeing in a given industry. So there's a part of this where what I'm trying to say is, here's a template for decision making, okay? And as the book talks about, and I'll say this every single time, as the text spoke of this, about problem solving versus decision making, and using that scientific method to walk through that. And that's all over there in chapter 1. But when we open up the solver tool, we get an objective function. What is it we're trying to do, the objective function? Then are we maximizing? Are we minimizing? What are we doing? Okay. And then we have our changing variables. What variables are we going to change? Then we introduce the constraints, and then we also have to choose the type of problem we're working with. For example, is it a simplex? Is it a linear type of problem, or is it a nonlinear, which would be something that's either concave or convex in terms of the distribution of the phenomena, or do we call it evolutionary? We're just not sure how the data typically distribute themselves. Now, all that being said, the sensitivity report, all right, is intended to tell us some things about how the variables are interacting, and to give us a sense of how, if we changed a particular resource input or dealt with a particular constraint, what does it look like? So it's very close to what one might say. It kind of gives us a picture of the marginal utility. And again, I'm back over here. When we're looking at this, let me just go ahead and handle this on, okay? And this is using lingo, and as they start to show us, you'll notice the objective coefficient ranges, And notice allowable increases and allowable decreases. So it's sensitivity analysis is designed to let us look at a set of results and say, okay, what here is the most volatile, and is that a good thing for me or a bad thing for me? And as you could look here, you can see we've got the objective coefficients, okay? And then we have the right side ranges, lots of allowable. And then you'll note we've got some things where we have a couple of those note infinity, meaning, you know, we can go as far as we want to go. So we might have in terms of an increase, we might have maybe a slack resource, but certainly, and how do you not, you say, well, how can you see that? If I look over at the allowable decreases, it starts to look at that. So this is a text, I chose it because it does a pretty good job of explaining that to us, all right? And you'll notice they start talking about conditional kinds of statements, less than, equal, etc. Now, I'm going to diminish my browser for just a minute, and I'm going to open up ParMod. Now, what you'll want to do is open up, download it to your desktop or your device, and save it there. Okay. And I'm just going to show, I'm going to save this as on my PC on the desktop, and I'm going to save it as ParMod. I'll just go up here and make sure I'm on the desktop. And I'll put ParMod, Harmon, Keith, and I'm going to save this. All right. And you say, why do you always go through this? It's simple. I have to repeat myself every single class because I invariably have a student or students who will upload files. They open the files up. Okay, they went into VMware. They open the files up. Maybe they're working in the lab. They open a file, work on it, and then save it and upload it, and thinking that they have that they're good, but you're not. The VMware is a virtual machine, okay? And what it's designed to do is to mimic what you would be working with if you had Office Productivity Suite physically installed on every single machine in the lab or installed on your machine. The VMware is a cloud application. So to invoke it and make it be able to interact back up here with the LMS, that is Canvas, you need to save it in your native environment, okay? And I've even gone so far as to download, rename, open, and save just to make sure, okay? Now, that all being said, let's take a look at this for just a minute. All right, and this is the ParMod file. And so what we've done here is we've modified some of the data, and the text is going to walk us through it, but we can see we have apparently a lightweight type of product, and so we had a standard and deluxe, and we have this lightweight product that gives us this profit margin. And we can see the time available for each of them. So we've modified the problem. Now, there are a couple of things that are important here to understand, all right? First of all, the beauty of building a mathematical model is that I can plug numbers in and out of it all day, run the numbers all day long, and I can say, okay, here's what it looks like if I do this, if I do that, if I do this, I do that. And I've mentioned it, I probably will every class. Perhaps one of the best predictive models you can build is to use Solver and arm it or equip it with randomly generated numbers, okay? And the reason being is I have to confess, I do not remember the maximum number of iterations you can do with rand between, which has to have whole numbers, and that's it. Some of you who are in 1123, I terrorized people by putting rand between one, and then I call it forward to do a presentation. The rand between works with whole numbers, and it says I can put a floor and a ceiling. The random function in Excel deals with random numbers, and I can run them out so I can simulate the outcome of a decision 1,000 times. The most powerful model is a mathematical model. The model, however, in that whole process of model building, you start with the mathematical model. And you might, let's say, for example, you're the people at Airbus as they were developing that the Airbus is probably, other than the space shuttle, one of the most complex pieces of technology that we have. Airplanes are incredibly complex because they have what we call fly-by-wire systems, and then they have one system backup after the other, okay? And the whole design of a commercial airliner is to build so many redundancies into it, that is backup after backup after backup, that you can be pretty sure that when something happens catastrophic, it's typically human error, okay? And that's kind of a coarse way to put it, but it's just really the truth. And then with regular maintenance, you're in good shape. Well, here we've modified PAR. We have this new lightweight product, and so we've got to decide how many bags do we want to produce, and we've introduced a new product. Now, again, if I'm in a manufacturing situation, and I'm actually in, if I'm in what we would call a batch manufacturing environment, that's where people call me and say, hey, can you make 100,000 units of part B or this component? And then the phone ring and somebody else will call and go, by the way, I need this part made or this component, and you'll get timelines and deadlines. And if you do batch operating and you operate and you do that, what that really means is you have to go in and it's most likely you're doing this for the 1,000th time with the same customer, but you have to make sure that the manufacturing process, the tools that are used and all their settings, etc., are based entirely upon building that product. So you not only have to engineer the product, you have to engineer the manufacturing line, okay? Well, that being said, the beauty of this is I could add 5 products, 6 products, 7 products, and I could work within time available and constraints and start to bend. And here we've added this 3rd product. And again, we can see ranges of outcomes. And as I've said before, and you'll remember if you took a course with me earlier, maybe 1123, maybe 4403, or certainly if you take the policy, if you ever take the policy course with me, I always tell you, and I talk about the Q, and that is the quality of a decision, and then that quadrant of known conditions, okay? And then a quadrant, and I'm going from the left, northwest, all the way around at the northwest to known problems. Then in the northeast quadrant, the unknown problems, stuff that I've never encountered this before. And then down to the southeast quadrant, unknown solutions. Okay? And then finally, the southwest quadrant, where I'm dealing with a known problem with known conditions. You say, this sounds suspiciously like a type 1 and type 2 chart in statistics. You're exactly right. And you have to make a decision on whether I'm concerned about what we would call type 1 error or type 2 error. Saying that something is not there when it is, or saying something isn't there when it is. And you can go and read some things about decision making. But if you had stat and you had a good stat course, you learned about that. Well, what we understand is when we make a decision, it's not black or white. It's along a continuum. It's along a continuum of stuff really bad and really good. You're going to hear me say this over and over and over. So why are you doing this? It's because when people get out in the world, and I see this all the time with decision makers who will make a decision as if it's a binomial choice. It's true or false, good or bad, yes or no. And the truth is that it's usually somewhere in between, okay? And with enough iterations, based on the law of large numbers, you're going to hit some of those, okay? So here in par Inc., we use the par modified. We've added an additional product, and we've run that through the mix to see can we maximize our total profit. And the textbook gives you the narrative around that process. But the main thing that they want to do is to get us started on looking at the sensitivity reports. And the readings this week, and anything that helps you understand the sensitivity reports, is some of the most important stuff in the textbook. And I've got to tell you that. And it's simply because when you go to work and you're out there in the world making decisions, always remember, when you make a decision, there are intended and unintended consequences, and the outcomes can be really, really bad or really, really good. And I have those of you who had classes with me probably think I'm a little bit off the beaten track, and probably any of us who are professors are in one way or the other. And one of the things that I like to study as a student of decision making and decision science, this will sound terribly perverse and bad and evil, but it's something I think that helps us. I study airline disasters. I do it a lot. And for a reason, because we have human beings, that is, the people flying the plane. And I'm not talking about someone who gets in a one-seater and probably makes a bad decision. I'm not talking about John F. Kennedy Jr., who had a wonderful plane, had a pilot's license, had a lot of training, and was told, you probably don't want to fly out in that area at night because it's highly foggy and a heavy cloud cover. And if you cannot really master the ability to fly using your instruments and trusting only them, if you trust your senses, you'll end up like he did. You'll fly your plane right into the ocean because you'll think you're right side up when you're upside down. And so when you're in a commercial airliner and you're coming in and they're in the middle of a fog bank, or you've got some clouds and storm, you want to pray, Lord, I hope the person the two pilots at command really did well on their fly-by-wire using only their instruments. Because when you're up in that dimension, flying is a different process than humans are used to. It's four-dimensional. And I know this from observation. My dad had a guy who flew him around, and I watched and all that time. And the guy was a very experienced pilot. And there were times that he just simply chose to fly around storms and things of that nature because, number one, he couldn't fly above them. And he didn't have pressurized. It had a pressurized cabin, but not the type he needed. Then number two is he didn't want to take the risk. So I watched those things and I studied them. And almost one of the most interesting was an airline disaster in South America, and it involved an Asian airline. And because the captain is so firmly in charge, that a co-pilot who said, "Hey, we've got a problem," and the voice recordings were there, the pilot ignored them and flew them right into a mountain. And that was because of a culture inside that cabin where you never question the captain. Now, in America and most United States airlines, our domestic airlines, that they view that as a team process, and thank God they do. And it's probably why we have such a good safety record. Okay, so again, thinking about decision making, and I've got a continuum and a range, and I have a template, a way that I follow and deal with things. Well, let's open up the PAR Inc. for just a minute, and this PAR mod, excuse me. And I'm going to click on data. Okay. And you should have solver. Now, if you don't have the solver and the data analysis tool pack, again, you go to file. Okay. I'll do that real quickly here. You click on file, and then you go to the options, and you'll see popped up here the add-ins. Click on that, and the add-ins that are active are here. And then if you need to add them, you can do. Pardon me, you can do so. All right, now let's take a look at this, and we've got. And I'm going to go ahead and pop the solver open. And here we are. Now we've got an objective function set up here. Okay. And then we're trying to do one of three things: maximize, minimize, or find a target value. And we're going to change some variables, and those are B16 through D16. Okay? And that is the bags produced. We want to find the right mix of those bags. Now, let me stop for a moment and add some wisdom. There are going to be times when you may consciously choose a suboptimal outcome. You say, what do you mean? Well, let's look at these three types. We've got a standard bag, a variable, a deluxe bag, and a lightweight. We may be in a competitive situation, excuse me, where I need to get market share. So I may, although I could and ought to get a profit per bag on the lightweight of $12.85, I just simply say, okay, I'm going to cut that in half, and I'm going to eat the loss so I get the market. I may be a new entrant to a market. New entrants, if they're disruptive technologies, new entrants tend to do one of two things. One, they take every money, every piece of every dime they can get, and they stuff it in the bank so they can pay attorneys to do battle with the next wave of follow-ups and imitators, sue them in patent court, sue them about licenses, tie them up all around intellectual property, okay? And so they just simply make, others will say, I'm going to come into this market, and these are usually really big firms, and I'm going to take this market, and I'm going to charge, I'm going to lose money, okay? Because I'm a big company, and I can just burn some money up because it's going to be easier for me to do that to gain and keep market share than it will for me to have to try to concoct some kind of advertising campaign or whatever in order to build a segment. And so what I'm going to do, first of all, most of the time as markets develop, they'll go through a process where you have a disruptor and they have a niche, and then you'll start to see new entrants who start to drop the prices. Now, I'm certain in your courses you probably studied Porter's model around strategy. And this is a good example here where I might say, okay, I'm going to cut the profits on this because I want to buy market share. And I'm going to make everybody compete on price. Why would you do that? Well, you may not have the brain power at your firm or the manufacturing capability or the service capability to compete with the big shots. So you make it a price issue. And there will be some new entrants or potential new entrants who'll say, I want no part of that. There will be others who'll say, oh, okay, I'll try, and they'll drop out. So this helps us, this encapsulates for us some decisions. Well, we're going to try to maximize our profit based on producing this product. We have a product mix here, okay? Now I want you to notice something very, very interesting about Par Mod. Notice what's happened. If you remember from Par Inc., we were going to make standard and deluxe bags. In this case, we've said we're going to forego making the deluxe bags, and we're going to make lightweight bags. Now, if you don't believe me that these mathematical models tell you a lot, you can see it right here. If this is a real world situation, this manufacturer has made a choice to leave the deluxe market or at least limit their production in that. They have now just changed their strategy, and they've expressed it mathematically here. Okay, so now we see the constraints. Okay, and those are going to be the left hand and the right hand side. And we'll go down and take a look at them. And then we've got the simplex LP. We assume we're operating in a linear environment where we have a y-axis and an x-axis, and the y-axis is the variable of interest. That would be sales. And the x-axis might be, well, I'll call up an old ghost from 1123 when I had you do a comparison of soft drink sales or beverage sales versus the temperature on opening day in a baseball game. All right, so we've got that, and we've got the LP, and we have the answer report. All right, and now if I want to, I'm going to go ahead and solve this. And it's going to give me the opportunity to look at 3 reports. Now, I did this a little bit on Monday, but today we already have the answer report. So let's click on sensitivity. And it will generate sensitivity report number 1. Now let's open that up for just a second. That shows up in the tab, and there it is. Okay. And here at the top, we have 2 things here that we're shown. We already have the answer report, so it tells us what our profit will be. Here we look at the variable cells and the constraints. And what we're trying to see is the interplay between them. And we're looking for volatility. You say, this sounds like a portfolio. You betcha. I want to show you something here for a moment. And I'm going to go back here to the classroom. I'm back here for a moment here in Canvas. One of the things that I try to do, okay, is to say, you're investing a lot of money and time in your education. So if I simply stop at what's in the textbook, and I don't try to provide you some current examples, or I don't try to show you the deeper theory or construct that's underneath these ideas, I'm not challenging you intellectually, okay? If I give you a really hard test, I challenge you intellectually. I'm just seeing how well you read the book or how well you memorized. So if you take a look, you're going to see here, I've got several resources that I curate for you, okay? And this is no different than if you came to Amazon and you bought something and Amazon says, hey, by the way, people who bought this also bought this. And so look at kind of and say, okay, people who studied sensitivity analysis also looked at, here's some stuff to think about. And so I have some links here for you to take a look at that talks about sensitivity analysis and shadow pricing. And one of them, two of them that are quite important, and you go, oh, this sounds like finance. I hope, I would assume in finance, your intro to finance course, you studied the efficient frontier, okay? And that is that point where I have a portfolio and there's only so much I can get out of it. And I can rearrange my portfolio. A portfolio is really nothing. It says, here's the type of asset in which I'm going to invest. Here is the percentage of all the money I have to invest. And here's the likelihood that I think I'll be successful, that I'll get a payout. Okay? And I have my portfolio. Actually, it's a weighted portfolio because I've assumed probabilities. Now, if I just say, okay, I'm going to put, and I have an anticipated return. And if I don't designate probabilities or attach probabilities to them, I'm doing exceptionally naive forecasting. So this is, if you really want to see, if you're a finance major, you definitely want to check this out because you can see here, that efficient frontier is not just portfolios, it's stuff I sell in product mix, etc. If I'm a marketing student, it's the mixture of advertising. We're going to hit a week or two here where we go through all kinds of business problems, and you're going to see us use Solver because it's such a remarkably versatile tool, but also because this is how decision-making happens, okay? So I've got some things there for you that I want you to please go out and take a look at them and read them. I'm not here teaching at this institution because I couldn't do it anywhere else. I'm here because, one, I'm a follower of our Lord. Two, I believe that if you're going to go out and represent him, you really do need to be the smartest person in the room or the best equipped person in the room. Your spiritual life, your chapel attendance, your daily office, that is your daily Bible readings, your prayer, etc. Those are issues that I'm really not equipped to help you with. I've got enough on my hands with me. But what I can do is my job of providing you this and challenging you to say, okay, I want to think like an owner. I want to think like an innovator. I want to think like a creative business person. But I have the discipline to start where I need to start and work my way through either a large company or through a process of, I say, you know, I'd rather work for myself. Okay. And you do that. And chances are, if you make that choice in life, you're probably going to go through 2 or 3 failures because it's just it's typical. One of the most exciting things in my mind that's happening now, it makes me think a lot of my mother, who was an entrepreneur, is that today, incredibly enough, in our economy, the small businesses are driving our job creation. And most of those are owned by women. That is an exciting thing for me. Okay, it's wonderful. My mom was an entrepreneur back in the 50s and 60s, and I guarantee, and she sold Avon, okay? And she had a distribution network. My mom was a farm girl from Iowa, but she understood distribution because she knew every morning, all of her life, she'd listen to the Farm Report. My mom understood options trading better than the people on Wall Street, and she understood distribution, and she had a gift for speaking of people. So when I see women out there doing that, running hedge funds, starting companies, it just warms the cockles of my heart, because we need more of them out there. And just simply because women at times, I think, are far better leaders and are far better communicators than men. I'm just going to say that. I've worked for a number of women in my time, and I'll tell you what, they were all remarkable people, and I got a lot from them. They're great mentors. Well, all that being said, I want you to take a look at these resources, and I would challenge you to. You're not going to get any points for doing this. You won't get, you won't get extra points, but you will say something to yourself, and that is, you're serious about what you're doing here. I'm interested in you owning your own firm, or being a partner in your own firm, or being a principal or a key player in an organization. I'm hoping, and I pray every morning, just like the guy who, I can remember the guy who'd go to temple and he'd hope for the Messiah. And he said, I hope before I die, my eyes will see the Messiah. And I don't remember the character's name, and I apologize for that. I wake up every morning and I go, is there among some of you OBU's first billionaire who will say, just like these other folks who don't claim to be followers of Christ, I'm going to give my money, half of it away while I'm alive, and donate the other half when I die? It's fascinating to me. And I hope we see that first openly Christian believer who says, I'm going to do that. Okay? And we've got some people, I think, who are getting close today, but I'm waiting to see that happen. And so I hope I'm somewhere in here. We've got the OBU's first billionaire. I know we've got some people we produced at this business school who I think probably by the time their lifetime is over, are going to be close. They're going to be in the tens of millions of dollars. And you say, what is this just about money? No, it's about the good you can do. And so I looked at that and I say, if you go out there and you employ 300 people and you give them a great place to work and you stick it through and you stay with them, okay, you have done a lot to minister to people. And so that's my hope for you. Well, all that being said, here are some resources for you I'd like you to take a look at. Now, I'm going to diminish this again, and we'll go back to the PAR mod, and let's reopen it up. Unless I have it open. Yeah, I do. There we are. And we've got the variable cells and constraints. And notice here in the sensitivity, we're looking at the allowables. Okay? And notice right here, we've got some scientific notation, which tells us we don't have a lot of room for wiggle in terms of increasing, but we do for decreasing. And this starts to help us look at this and strategize in terms of the constraints and in terms of our variables. But we can start with those constraints and we start to look at costs. All right, well, I've waxed quite a while. We've got about 10 minutes left, and I'm going to close this off now, and I'm going to save it, and you'll want to upload it to Canvas for your workshop credit. Now, we have a second one, and that's Hewlett, okay? And the Hewlett is in chapter 4, okay? And as you'll notice, it's over pages 166 to 169, and you can pop over to chapter 4 and find the narrative for that case. Now I'm going to close this off, and I'm going to look at the Anderson materials and the student Excel files and open them up. And I'm going to go down here, chapter 4, okay? And I'm going to find the Excel file, and I'm going to find Hewlett. I'm going to take it out here to my desktop, as I've admonished you repeatedly, and I'm going to find it over here. Where is here? Here's Hewlett, and I'm going to do this just to make sure it's clear that that the incoming from me into Canvas is from a native environment. I'm going to rename it, and let's see. I'm going to rename this thing. I'm going to call it Hewlett Harmony Keith. Okay, and we're going to open it up, and the verbiage again is over there, and this is enabled. Okay, we'll enable that, and we've got their cash requirements. All right, and this is a portfolio problem. Now, with this back up, and I'm going to go to the contents. And we'll go over here to chapter 4. All right. And we're going to see over here in chapter 4 the financial applications. And hopefully this will open up for us here. If it's going to cooperate. Now I've got page 166 through 169 cover Hewlett, and I'll just go to the contents part first. If it's gonna freeze up on me, you little weasel. All right. Well, what you'll want to do is go ahead and follow that text over there, and if you've got the text, but this is a financial application. Chapter 4 is going to walk us through a whole series of these. And let me do this. Maybe I want to refresh this browser. I don't think it's going to let me. Go back to the table of contents. And I'm just going to search for Hewlett. Let's see if this will get us over there. I think I've spelled it correctly. Here we go. And this is a company doing some financial planning. And it's not opening up for me. It's being naughty. I'm just going to have to download the whole book so I can pop it up. But I really like to use this source, this computer-based source, until it goes dead on me. But what we're going to see, and I'll just open this, we'll go back. Here we have cash requirements for a certain period of time, okay? And we are looking at, we have some bonds, and we have some rates that we're paying with them, and we have years of maturity, and we have an annual savings multiple, and here's this. And now we're going to try to start, and we're going to take, and this starts with the model, and we're going to try to come up with the best cash flow. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that this is a company that pays out an annuity, and they're trying to make sure they have enough cash inflow so they can meet their obligations and the cash requirements. And we can see we've got and they've got a cash outflow, and they've got to have a certain net cash amount. They have a net cash flow, and it's got to equal their requirement. And so we run and we use Solver. I'm going to open Solver up for just a second here. Okay. And we'll click the data, and we'll look at the Solver function. And here on the objective on B20, we're doing a minimization. We're trying to find out the minimum amount of funds that we need to have in order to generate that net cash flow to meet the cash requirement, i.e. the payout that we want to get using those series of bonds. And again, we're using the simplex, and we have the constraints. And those constraints are G20, 21 to 28, and they have to be equal. That's our net cash flow and then our cash requirements. And then we have we have those constraints, and then we have the changing variable cells, and those are A17 over to L17, and that's this darkened area. Okay? And so we have this, really it's like it's like a project budget, except the project is I have investors, and I want to make sure I pay out their annuities and they get paid. So, and I meet minimum cash requirements. And I apologize about the go back up here for a minute. And the vital source playing not, oh, okay, well, they started to be nice to me a little bit. Let's see. There we go. Very good. I've got a few minutes left, but you can read the verbiage, but and you could see they're trying to meet some cash payout sales. Now, chapter 4, and we're going to start to see that, again, Solver is a remarkably versatile tool. Why? Because it's designed to walk you through the key components of problem solving. Okay? Now, decision making, that's another thing. And we get some information about the Hewlett Corporation, what they do. All right? And we're trying to make sure that we have their cash outflows. And this is loading a little bit slow. And my apologies about that. And you've got the books, or you download them. I'm probably going to have to go back to VitalSource and ask them to let me download this. I apologize, but you should have your textbook out. And yes, I've actually read these cases, so I do have a semblance of understanding. But I can also pull up the model and take a look at it and tell you what we're dealing with. And they'll pull that up. My connection over here today is not too good, so it's running kind of slow. All right, now it's 11:49. And I'm going to come back over here, and you can follow the rest of the narrative around Hewlett and what they're doing. And I think we've started to see how this all structures itself out. And again, you'll want to download Hewlett, rename it, and I'm even going to go so far as now as to save it as on my desktop. And it's Hewlett Harman Keith. I'll make sure it's on the desktop. And I'll save it, and then I'll upload it for the workshop credit. Okay? And then I'm done. Now, if I wanted to be really fancy, and I'll add one thing here, I could, with these cash requirements, okay, give them apply time value of money to them. Okay? So then I would have a true capital project, and we could assume that these net cash flow figures show some value of that. We've got, and that's implied here in this case because we've got these 3 bonds, okay, and we've got years to maturity. We got a Y10, so that's implied. Okay, I'm going to close that off for just a moment, and we'll go back up here. And again, what have you got to do this week? Pretty simple. You've got the you'll want to upload the PAR continued, and that's the PAR mod that you want to upload it, and then the Hewlett. All right, and then you have a quiz on the 14th, and I've got a Hewlett key there. And I think I might have done some work and played around with some variables and messed with it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to make this visible so you can see it. And then I might talk about it a bit on Monday, although I think it's pretty self-explanatory. And again, and you're going to say, you're starting to sound like a broken record. Yes, I am. But that's good because you're learning we're doing more here than just learning how to work with a piece of software. You're learning about decision making and the key components of building a model to try to solve a problem and then try to determine, do I have an optimal solution? Which means I may not always get the best solution, but it'll be the best solution I have under the circumstances. Okay, folks, thank you so much. And I want to see the faithful 3 is Michael, Patty, thank you, Robert, thank you so much. And I'm hoping that others will see this in on-demand time. And let me say this. I've tried to use this format to make it as useful and accessible for you as possible. I don't do anything any differently here than I would do if we were all sitting over there in BBC Lab. So if this format works for you and you like it, please let me know that, because I'm trying to do an experiment. I'm the most experienced person probably in the university in terms of working online. And so I'm trying to find out, is this format workable for you? Those who are athletes, those who work full time, what are the limits? Can I take this course and make it fully an on-demand experience, or stay with a hybrid? Should I require a certain number of times that your posteriors are physically over there at BBC? I don't know. I'm trying to find that out at the same time to give you guys an opportunity to learn something about management science. So I got a lot of balls I'm juggling here. Thank you so much. God bless you. And I will see all of you on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend.